proposed revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Now, as you may know, my running mate, Tim, is Catholic and went to Jesuit schools. And one of the things he and I have talked about is this idea from the Jesuits of the Magus, the more, the better.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another reading of Codeword Barbelon on this Sunday, March 18th, 2018. And we are on chapter 24, Order Out of Chaos, the Jesuits, their rise and fall and audacious return. Jörg Glissman, you are there in Belgium. Welcome, brother.
I still am, yeah.
Yeah?
Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Brett.
It's amazing to have this contact with you in this book reading. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Well, you don't have to because, I really want to read this book, but if it wasn't to do videos together with you, I would not have taken this on as a single project of myself. Mm-hmm. So it's really because you are doing that together with me. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter that sometimes you are, of course, a little bit off and don't pay that much attention. That's no trouble. The point is you are there. You make the videos, and you are there to support me whenever I have a glitch, like
we
I
all
can't
have
come to a
glitches,
word or
brother.
whatever.
Oh yeah, no problem.
And no, you are there also for my spiritual support, and
Yes.
I value that very much, Brett. And I never would have taken on this project, especially because it's 2 volumes, about a little more than 1,000 pages. I wouldn't have taken that on all by myself. So I'm glad that you do this together with me. At least in this way, we can get this book out. I think it is a book that a lot of people are waiting for. There's a lot of information. A lot of people are hungry for to take in.
I agree. And I'm hungry for it too. So we shall proceed.
Yeah, we shall proceed in a second. I just wanted to tell you, we have, as you rightfully stated today, Sunday, the 18th of March. And last night, I just watched your last upload on the series. That is part 13 that you uploaded yesterday night.
Yes,
my
the
time.
Kabbalistic number 13.
And yeah, it's not about because of that number,
I'm
because
just teasing.
people are playing with these numbers.
Yeah,
but,
they do. They do.
When, for example, they say Friday the 13th is a bad day, well, that goes back to the superstition that the Knights Templars were arrested on Friday the 13th in 1307. That's why
so it was a good day. Yeah. Sure was.
Yeah, it's the same with April Fools. They
that's
put
right.
people in the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, into some kind of joke and sarcastic things, but it's actually the real beginning of the new year. It is only since the Gregorian calendar that we start our year at New Year's at the 1st of January.
I know.
Yeah?
It's
So
irony,
that's why it's
isn't
April
it?
Fools.
Irony.
But I didn't even want to mention that point. The point is just, okay, it was part 13 that you uploaded last time, but I just wanted to congratulate you on that wonderful work that you did, that video work that you did. A great intro, a wonderful outro, with James Arabito, with Eric John Phelps, a lot of quotes in there, nice pictures, really a wonderful, wonderful video work that you did with that, Brett, and I'm looking forward to see more of these videos come out. Now, a lot of people say, they are now recording the 46, 47th, I don't know, part. He speaks about the 13th part being uploaded. Yeah, but that's because video work takes a little time.
Oh, it takes a lot of time.
And
people
even
don't
though
appreciate it so much, because they don't see it, and that's okay. It's fine. It's just that everything comes at a price, and we're not looking for any reward, are we, Jörg?
No, we get our reward in heaven, Brett.
That's it.
The point that I wanted to make is, even though that people may think that this video work is not important, you have an artistic adder and you have a different point of view on that. And therefore, if you can only put one or maybe maximum 2 videos like this out in a week, you still do more than enough. And then it will take more than a year. So what? As long as we have the time, we can only pray that we have the time to get it out. But when we make the videos a little bit more attractive to watch, what you are wonderfully doing with your work, then I hope we will also get followers of this video series that are anxious when they watched one part to see the next one. Not only because of the content of what we are reading, but also because of the content which they can view.
That's right.
And I just wanted to congratulate you for that wonderful work you did on that part 13. And now, without any further ado, I'm going to go into page 244 of the book, Volume 1, Codeword Barbelon, Danger in the Vatican of P.D. Stewart. That you rightfully said already, that chapter is called Order Out of Chaos. The Jesuits, their rise, their fall, and their audacious return. Alas, I knew they would poison me, but I did not expect to die in so slow and cruel a manner. Antichrist Pope Clement XIV stated on his deathbed in 1773, after publishing the bull of abolishment of the Jesuit order. What's it called? Redemptor Act. I don't get it together.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're alluding to. I can't remember it either.
Yeah,
something Ac Redemptor, right? Something Ac Redemptor.
Yeah, we come to that probably later on in this reading. Exactly. And there's another interesting quote from someone that I just read in the German part. You know that I told you that I'm reading in German this book from Theodor Griesinger about the Jesuits and their history. And this Francesco Borgia, who is the 3rd Jesuit general, there's a very interesting story in that Griesinger book about how he even went into the Jesuit order, that Francisco Borgia. Very, very interesting. But therefore, I have to tell you, read the book from Theodor Griesinger. I'm not going to tell that you right now here. But from that Francisco Borgia, we read another quote that says, "We came in like lambs and will rule like wolves. We shall be expelled like dogs and return like eagles." Believe it or not, the most devastating blow to have befallen the mighty Jesuits during their long and mostly successful history was landed by the unwilling and trembling hand of the Pope in Rome. But with the Jesuits, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Make no mistake about it. The Jesuits are to be feared. For them, the end justifies the means. Even Jesuit Superior General Pedro Arupe had to admit, quote, "The company is feared everywhere. The people say the Jesuits are wily and so powerful." The Catholic professor Paolo Sarpi, who resided at Rome, tells us, quote, "They are omnipotent in the Roman court, and the Pope himself fears them," unquote. Said James Edgar Wiley, quote, "Even the popes of whose throne the Jesuits, was the pillar, have repeatedly decreed its extinction. First, Benedict IV, by a bull issued in 1741, prohibited them from engaging in trade and making slaves of the Indians. Later, in 1759, Portugal, being brought almost to the brink of ruin by their intrigues, shook them off. End of the quote from Wiley. France soon followed suit, then Spain, says Wiley. All the Jesuit establishments were surrounded one night in 1767 with troops, and the whole fraternity, amounting to 7,000, were caught and shipped off to Italy with courses of ande in malora, whatever that means.
Isn't that go
Not
back
long-
home? Wasn't that go back home?
Ande in malora? I don't know. That's possible, yeah.
I thought I heard
Yeah.
you read that before.
Oh, okay. That's possible.
That sounds
I don't
very
remember
familiar. I think that, I was editing the other day and I heard you in this
Dominic
reading.
Ac Redemptor.
Dominic Ac Redemptor. There we go. That's the papal bull.
That's the papal bull, yeah.
Good.
But anyway, I mean, we can read as much about the abolishment of the Jesuit order as we want, and this author is probably not going into that. I learned from reading between the lines after reading Rulers of Evil from F. Tapasauci and other books on the Jesuits that the abolishment of the Jesuits was planned long ago. The whole quote unquote generalate of Lorenzo Ricci, who became Jesuit general in 1758 and died at an unknown time beyond his official date of death, which is 1775, because he was seen and registered in the United States of America during and after 1776 as quote-unquote the professor. Yeah? He arranged the abolishment of the Jesuits. And why? Well, you just have to read the Bible.
Yeah.
Revelation 13. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death.
That's right.
I think, and that's my personal opinion, you don't have to agree with me, and I don't mean you, Brett, I mean the list, you or the video. You don't have to agree with me, but my point of view is that this revelation, or this part of Revelation 13, has more than one meaning, or can have more than one meaning. The Jesuits are ahead of the beast, of the first beast of the Vatican. And they were abolished, but they were not dead, because they founded the front organization to hide behind the so-called Illuminati. And they popped up because they were re-established by Pope Pius V, if I'm not mistaken, in 1814. And they were put back into office in all glory, and even with more power than before. And also, what we just read here, when Wiley says, even the popes of whose throne the Jesuits was the pillar have repeatedly decreed its extinction. Well, the popes don't have the power over the Black Pope. And you know that because in one of our earlier readings, I read to you a part from Griesinger's book of the papal bull from 1543, Inductum Nobis, where it states that the general of the Society of Jesus has the power even to revoke the orders of the White Pope. And we read in another part of this book that the Pope says, they rule, that's why I rule them, I am their master, that's why I follow them. Remember that quote that I read 1 or 2 or 3 broadcasts ago? I don't know.
Sure.
And that's a confirmation of that papal bull, Inductum Nobis, that was published in 1543. I mean, do your own research and look this up. And this is what I mean. When you read all these different things, then you can read a book like this, quote unquote, between the lines and make out much, much more than actually the author is writing here. And I am not blaming the writer for not saying all these things, because he probably didn't know. You can do research until the cows come home, like I do also, and never come to the knowledge of it all, right?
No, yeah, it's a lot going on. You're
I
no
would,
doubt.
I would never dare to say, yeah, but I research this, I research that, I'm a know-it-all. That's very
It's
dangerous.
dangerous. Yeah,
That's very
exactly.
dangerous to do.
Very dangerous.
But
You're
with the
asking
stuff
for
that,
the whirlwind. Yeah, you're reaping a whirlwind. Yeah.
yeah, but with that stuff that I researched up to now, I can with full confidence say that these things are so. And I can back it up with documents and historical facts. And that does not make anything that I say conspiracy theory, but conspiracy fact.
Mm.
And then it also makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is in a way, this is just an understanding that comes to me just as this second. The white pope is the vicar of Christ, and he is wearing the mask of Satan. And Tom Friess said that, I have said that
Yeah,
actually
that's
the pope is Satan hidden under a human mask.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Now you can say the papacy has had a little bit more than 1,000 years, or about 1,000 years the time. Actually, it's about 1,000 years when you go to 538, the date the SDA sets, when Belisarius was at Rome and took over. Belisarius took over. It's 538, and the Jesuits were founded in 1540. So that's 1,002 years.
Wow.
So Satan could have said, well, Pope, I gave you 1,000 years, and look what you've done. Look what you've allowed to happen. The Reformation comes, and now I am here, and all my success is swimming away. I'm going to found a new order, and that order will push until there's nothing else but blood flowing from this world. And that's what the Jesuits did with their inauguration.
Didn't they?
He just, maybe Satan just took the power of the Pope away in that way and put the Black Pope into power. And we have confirmation of that in different papal bulls, like Injunctum Nobis, where it is written that way, that the Black Pope actually has the power. Why is it in the constitutions of the Jesuits mentioned 500 times that the novices, that the members of the Society of Jesus have to see the general of the society as the vicar of Christ? Why do they make the distinction that the Pope is the quote-unquote vicar of Christ, but they have to see the general as if he was Christ in person? From the white Pope, the Roman Catholic Church says he is Jesus Christ hidden under a veil of flesh. But the Jesuit order sees his general as if the general was Jesus incarnate. That's quite a different point of view, right? So, and to me, that understanding of the Jesuits of their general is much more forcefully than the understanding of the white Pope. With that, I don't want to say, oh, the white Pope, he's just a poor man, blah, blah, blah. No. He's devilish. Don't get me wrong. But he doesn't have the power that lots of people think they do. And even P.D. Stewart, in his last book that we are still awaiting, Pope Francis, Lord of the World, he said, he mentioned this one quote, that there was a circle drawn, and the explanation given, within the circle the Pope can do whatever he wants, but if he leaves that circle, he's a dead man. And why is he a dead man? Because there is a power higher than him. And I'm not speaking about the God of heaven, who is always a power higher than everybody and everything else. That's not the point.
Right. It's the hierarchy,
But there is the Black Pope behind him. And if he dances out of the lines, he will pay for that. Yeah. Like for example, Pope John Paul I did. That's why he reigned only for 33 days. And we just read of Pope Clement XIV, who issued the bull Dominic Ac Redemptor to abolish the Jesuit order in 1773. He did that by orders of Lorenzo Ricci, who was the general of the Society of Jesus at that time. He had a predecessor who was Pope Clement XIII. That one was poisoned by the general, by the Society of Jesus, to make place for Clement XIV, because Clement XIII didn't want to abolish the order. He didn't listen to the general as he should have. Therefore, he was killed. Then Pope Clement XIV was put in, and he was a pupil from Ricky from the beginning, because Clement XIV, when he still was a cardinal, got his cardinalship through Lorenzo Ricky, the Jesuit general. Yeah, so he was always a pupil of Lorenzo Ricky himself. And of course, then he says, I knew they would poison me. Of course he knew, but he did only the bidding of the superior of the general. So he became a quote-unquote martyr of the Roman Catholic Church by doing that.
Right.
That's what the Jesuits do. They
Yes.
martyr themselves. They
They
become
do.
martyrs for themselves
It's like
because
the
the end
Ouroboros, right?
justifies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
same
because
thing.
the end justifies the means, Brett.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to them whatever
Yes.
has to happen, as long as the church in the end is the gainer of the action.
Well, it's right in the
And-
oath. I mean, you're dead anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
should you be
Piranda
afraid of
Akada.
death? You know?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry for this little excursion here, but
No. Go ahead.
I think it is quite important that we understand that, and the more that everybody who watches these videos and probably has his own copy of the book and reads along is able to understand what information you can get from the other books that I read or that I listened to other people reading, like Romanism and the Reformation. I never quote unquote read by myself, but I followed the reading of Tom Frass.
Right.
Watching that, him reading and discussing that book and all that stuff and doing that research. And when anybody else who is listening to this and watching this video is edified in the same way and understands that quote unquote reading between the lines as I learned it in these last years of study to do so the better, because the fuller the view you have on the total picture. That's just very, very important. So Ande and Malora, that's probably back home because they were sent off to Italy, right?
Right.
And a lot of these Jesuits then were, of course, not even allowed to land. And what did they do then, Brett? Do you know that?
Well, you're talking about when 1767 they were sent back here. 7,000 shipped off to Italy, and cursing of the people, go back home, get out of here. You're not welcome here. You know, well, of course they had to found the United States, didn't they?
No, they went to Corsica.
Oh, okay. Please.
They went to Corsica, and that's why Napoleon, Corsica born and raised, came out of Corsica and then punished the French and all the other countries that abolished the Jesuit order at that time.
Ooh. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
From 1767.
I got a lot to learn yet.
From 1767 and from 1773, when a lot of Jesuits were expelled from Spain, they then landed in Corsica. And that's why Napoleon came out of Corsica. And you know from Napoleon that he was a quote-unquote 33rd degree Freemason. Who is the master of Freemasonry?
Oh, I think I remember you talking about this before. That's right.
Yeah, most of the times I'm just repeating myself.
No. But that's really important because unless you've studied your history, you wouldn't know that. I would never know that unless I've studied it.
Okay, let's go on in the book here. Not long after 1767, says Wiley in the same passage, quote, a similar expulsion befell them in South America. Naples, Malta, and Parma were the next to drive them from their soil. But the severest blow was yet to come. In a letter dated June 9, 1762, Clement XIII wrote to Louis XV, King of France, imploring the French king to support the Jesuits and to oppose those who would persecute them. In the end, however, Antichrist Pope Clement XIII, who until that time was one of their strongest supporters, yielding, quote, at last to the anonymous demands of all the Roman Catholic courts, summoned a secret conclave for the suppression of the order, unquote. But Clement would pay the ultimate price for daring to think of disbanding the Jesuits. Well, what did I just say with my comments a few minutes before? Quote, Clement died suddenly the very evening before the day appointed for the conclave. Quote, his death was even predicted by the Jesuit Cardinal Bellarmine, who said of the Pope, quote, he will never give his decision. His life will first fail him, unquote. In his place, Cardinal Giovanni Vincenzo Antonio Lorenzo Ganganelli, who lived between 1705 and 1774, was elected as the new Antichrist in 1769 by cardinals who were divided over their support of the Jesuits. Ganganelli assumed the title Clement XIV. Soon after his ascension to the gilded papal throne, Charles III, King of Spain, presented Clement XIV with a perplexing dilemma, that unless the Pope utterly and completely dissolved the Jesuits, he, Charles, King of Spain, would break away from Rome and set up his own rival church. The new Pope strove for several years to reform the Jesuits, but with little success. Finally, on July 21st, 1773, Antichrist Pope Clement XIV, with much reluctance, like his predecessor Clement XIII, under pressure from the kings of France, the kings of Spain and Portugal, issued the fateful and famous bull Dominus ac Redemptor Noster, purporting to dissolve the Jesuit order forever, quote, as a corporate body, unquote. In fact, it was a brief, a less authoritative papal decree. Well, to that I only have to say there's really a struggle going on. Many people say it is a bull, many people say it is a brief. The point is, Brett, what many people don't understand, a papal bull is the highest authoritative paper a pope can issue.
Yes.
And a bull, after publication, directly becomes part of Roman Catholic canon law and can never be revoked. Now, for that you can say, if it was a bull, the Roman Catholic Church, of course, breaks her own rules when, in 1814, with another bull, the Jesuits were re-established.
Oh.
But on the other hand, what does it matter? Because they make up their rules as they go along.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as the church is the gainer in the end justifies the means.
That's right.
So I don't want to even be partaker of that. It's a bull, it's not a bull, it's only a brief, whatever. The point is, the Pope was pressed by the Superior General of the Jesuit at the time, Lorenzo Ricci, to write and authoritatively publish that brief or bull, whatever you want to call it, Dominus ac Redemptor, to abolish the Jesuit order and to make them no longer any part of the Roman Catholic Church, and to abolish them, as you can read in the bull or brief or whatever it is for yourself, forever. Yeah? He was pushed to do so. It was the agenda of the Black Pope. And why was it the agenda of the Black Pope? Well, to further secularize the order. That when they came back with all the power and all disguises, only in all the disguises the king of the gypsies could assume, as one of the former presidents of the United States said so eloquently in one of his letters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Right.
And that's it, because from that day on, and even until today, where we are living in 2018, we are not able to identify a Jesuit.
No.
Because it is not that he has to wear his short robes, his black robes, or whatever, or hats. He doesn't even have to be a priest. They can be coadjutors. They can be scholastics. They can be novices, and they could be that in the secular realm too.
Yeah.
The guy who works next to your boss in your company could be a Jesuit, and you will never know. Because they are hidden they are everything to every man, as they stated that.
That's right.
And that is what Lorenzo Ricci wanted to establish at the time by, forbidding the Jesuit order, and also, of course, and that is the most important reason, when all of a sudden all the Protestants see, oh, the Jesuit order doesn't exist anymore. And at the same time, because we are dealing about the time of the SDA teaching 1798, when the Pope was taken captive by the general of Napoleon a little bit later, the Jesuits are not working anymore. The Pope has no power anymore. Oh, the Church of Rome is gone. We don't have to take care of that anymore. Now we are free to do whatever we want. And we don't have to fear the Antichrist anymore, right? Because up to that time, everybody knew that the papacy was the Antichrist, but the Antichrist had no power anymore, and the Jesuits were forbidden and were not active anymore. So this was just to give, quote-unquote, security to the people. And when they felt safe, what did they do? They were not aware of the infiltration of the Jesuit order that took place after that. And they infiltrated all the pulpits and all the political realms from top to bottom down. And today they control every seminary, every quote-unquote Protestant church, every quote-unquote apostate church of the from the Roman Catholic Church. They control the Roman Catholic Church. They control all religions. They control Islam. They control all the important religions in the world. They control politics. They control economics. And that's why they are behind the quote-unquote New World Order, which is just the old world order restored to give back to the Pope the power that he had before the Reformation.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing of it, Jörg, is they really don't have to work that hard when you're on the devil's side, because the devil just tempts you to do anything you want. You got it all. You got it made. It's just sick. Yeah. It's just a cesspool of the worst filth you could ever imagine, but people just buy into it. It's so easy to do. It's so hard to be a pure Christian in this world, or to claim you are, is you're asking for it. Let's talk about reaping the whirlwind. Just go confront a pastor on his doctrine or something. And, there's a lot of false teaching. I mean, it's just astonishing how these people are taken. They don't even know they're preaching a Jesuit-inspired gospel.
No.
They don't even really consider it because they haven't studied it, nor are they interested in it. They're just so convinced that it's the truth. It just blows my mind. But who am I?
Everything you learn in this world, Brett, is just learning against learning. It's just Gnosticism against the learning of the Bible.
That's
Medici learning, as the Jesuits established.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting when you bring it into this historical perspective, Jörg, and you start reading these old books. It really, really opens up your mind. I mean, just in ways that nothing else can.
All of a sudden, all the pieces of the puzzle fall together, right?
Yes.
And you see the big picture.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Like
that's what it's all about.
I was just listening last night to one of the uploads you did of Pastor Bill Hughes. Forgive me for calling him pastor, but Bill Hughes does some wonderful historical research, and he's got so many different little things that he brings to the table that actually make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love listening to him because he I forget now, why did I bring him up? I was listening to this last night, and he was mentioning a few things about, just the historical aspects of it. Just, I don't know. It's too bad more people don't put some faith into the history, and follow the thread of history here in the Antichrist of the Bible, And the Antichrist really has been with us all this time. And still is.
Well, You know, Brett, I think the most important point that you have to make here is the study of history always has to go hand in hand with the study of religion or the study of the Bible.
That's
And
right.
and the Jesuits do everything they have in their power to forge history, yeah, and to write the history in the way that they want to write it and want to teach it to us, and at the same time to falsify the Bibles. So whenever you are availing yourself to study history and together with the Bible, well, then you go to the library, you take out a history book that is written from, I
That's
don't
right.
know, whatever Catholic company puts it out, and next to that, you're going to put the NIV.
Yeah, that's right.
What wisdom do you gain from that? Well, that's the problem. You think you are doing a good study, and you're not. You have to read real Protestant books like Romanism and the Reformation
Yep.
and put the 1611 authorized version of the King James Bible next to it. And then you get a real history story, because otherwise you are caught in this system and you are
Oh,
trying to
man.
understand the system from within. And you cannot, can only understand the system from without. Therefore, you need study tools that are outside of the system. And the King James Bible, which is over and over and over attacked by everybody, is
Mhm.
outside of the system. Books like Romanism and the Reformation, Rome
Yes.
and Civil Liberty,
Yes.
the footprints of the Jesuits,
50 years in the Church of
the
Rome. That's what it
understanding,
is.
the understanding that Tom Friess gives in the reading of the Global Vatican, for example,
Yeah.
those are things that are outside of the
That's right.
system, and only with that you can crack it
That's right. It's way
and get to
outside the
unity, right?
realm of everyday life today. And people just can't recognize it because it's just, oh, you're too obscure. That's just too far. You've gone too far now, and I have to leave. Well,
Now,
that's okay. It's
that
just the way it's
happens
going to be.
That happens, Brett, when you become a fundamentalist who only sees black or white
Mm-hmm.
and who doesn't want to see any gray and who doesn't compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And as the Roman Catholic Church says of itself, semper eadem, always the same, never
Yes.
changing.
Never
Well,
changes.
that's what the Protestants should do too.
That's
They
right.
should say sola scriptura,
That's right.
only the word of God. And the word of God never changes because God says, the world will pass away, but my word will not pass away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in a kind of a sixth sense, here Satan is like God, never changing, holding on to its principles, teaching everybody else, of course, to
Oh,
compromise.
absolutely right.
The devil does teach everybody to compromise and to accept, to be quote unquote, this is the word of the year, tolerant. You know, tolerance
Oh,
is such a bad thing.
yeah.
It only means it only means that you have to water down your standpoint. That is tolerance.
Mm,
Uh, they also say, yeah, you have to put a little bit of water into your wine, you know.
right.
Because why? Because that drink is too strong otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but if you put water in your wine, you don't have wine anymore. You have a mixture of wine and water. No
Mm-hmm.
wine anymore.
That's
What's
right.
wine in the Bible? The true gospel.
Mm-hmm.
So when you water the true gospel, you falsify it.
Yes, you
That's
do.
what all these Bibles do.
That's right.
That's what the devil wants you to do.
That's right.
And that's why so many people don't come with their studies to the understanding, because they always leave a little leaven in their bread.
Yeah, they keep mixing it up, you know,
Yeah. And
mixing it up
a
with
little
worldly
leaven spoils the
things.
whole.
You got all this ecumenical music now, and it's all,
Yeah.
you know, just watered down, just like you said. And along with the doctrine, it's all going down the toilet.
And a little leaven spoils the whole lump.
Oh, it sure does. It doesn't take
Yeah?
much. It really
So,
doesn't take much.
you know, when you build your foundation of faith and your authority of your conscience on the rock, which is Jesus Christ, and the Word, which is the 1611 King James Bible in English today,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden you depart from that rock, then you are taken by surprise, and you don't have the confidence anymore. You don't have the assurity anymore, and you will be thrown like a pinball, like a ball in a pinball machine, from the left to the right, from the top to the bottom, and you don't know what's happening anymore. You are just becoming a play ball. You are just becoming a pawn on the chessboard, and somebody else is setting you. Instead of that, you set the terms, because you said, I build my foundation on the rock that is Jesus Christ and his word, the true Bible, and I will not leave left or right from this path. Then you're on it. And that asks a lot of character. And it asks a lot of, I don't even know the right word for that in no language, so it's not an English word that doesn't come to mind. But you have to be strong in yourself, because you are building on the Creator God of this world. And that you can always trust on. Don't leave that path. And together with the Bible study, do a real history study. Like, for example, we can do with reading this book, when next to reading this book, we take other books, and here and there, that's why I make these comments. Take into consideration what we read over there. Take into consideration what you can read over there. Take into consideration what that man wrote or what that man said, and combine all these things, and then you can really have the possibility to look behind the curtain and really see what's going on. Shall I continue reading a bit, Brett?
Please, Jörg, please.
Much like Clement XIII, Pope Clement XIV knew he was signing his death warrant in issuing such a bull. I told you before that he knew that on beforehand. This suppression, said the Pope, will be my death. Wiley writes, quote, the Pope knew well how unforgiving was the pride and how deadly the vengeance of the society, and he did not conceal from himself the penalty he should have to pay for decreeing his suppression. On laying down his pen after having put his name to the bull, he said to those around him that he had subscribed his death warrant. Sotto scriviano la nostra morte, he said. Means I sign my death warrant. The execution of the Pope's bull, and now all of a sudden the author always mentioned this as a bull, not as a brief anymore. So we are just continuing with the understanding that it was a bull, okay? The execution of the Pope's bull was sudden, like a thunderbolt from the blue. It was planned years and years on beforehand. Quote, it declared, after a mature deliberation, we do of our certain knowledge and the fullness of our apostolic power suppress and abolish the said company. Unquote. On the day of this proclamation, soldiers surrounded the houses of Jesuits in the Papal States and rounded up the Jesuits. Their general, Lorenzo Ricci, was confined as a prisoner in the castle of St. Angelo. They were forbidden to teach and had their wealth, their lands and property taken and given to the Dominican priests, the guys who were responsible for the Inquisition before the Jesuits took over. The Jesuits never forgot this, so that when their order was restored to power, the Jesuit Jacobins massacred the Dominicans in the French Revolution. Now, we don't read any word here about that Lorenzo Ricci was made a prisoner in the Castello di Sant'Angelo in Rome. That is what we read here. But what we don't read here, and therefore you have to turn to Rulers of Evil to understand that there was a secret tunnel between the Castello Sant'Angelo and the Vatican, and that Lorenzo Ricci was actually using that tunnel and planning the next Pope to come into power after Pope Clement XIV here. But therefore you have to read Rulers of Evil. I cannot explain the whole book Rulers of Evil during this reading now, but there's much more going on behind the scenes than P.D. Stewart tells us here in this one. Okay? And that via the Jacobins they massacred the Dominicans in the French Revolution may be true, But that is not the only reason, because the Dominican order took over part of the Jesuits' power at the time that they were forbidden. It's also because the Jesuits wanted to make the point that they are responsible for the Inquisition and not the Dominicans anymore. The Dominicans were a rivalry order to the Jesuits in that part, and if the Jesuits can't live with one thing, it is a rivalry. They have the understanding that they have the absolute power and nobody else can deal with that. And that's also a reason why they massacred the Dominicans in the French Revolution. The third general of the Jesuits, Francesco Borgia, had declared the mindset of his men many years before. Quote, "We come in like lambs and will rule like wolves. We shall be expelled like dogs and return like eagles." And so, almost from their inception, the Jesuits had been regarded throughout the world as a society to be feared and condemned. For as Professor Morse explains, quote, "They are for the most part Jesuits, an ecclesiastical order proverbial through the world for cunning duplicity and total want of moral principle. An order so skilled in all parts of deception that even in Catholic countries, in Italy itself, it became intolerable and the people required its suppression." Unquote. And with that suppression, the people got what they wanted, not understanding that they gave the Jesuits the possibility to come back stronger than they ever did before through their infiltration. And during the time of their suppression, ruling on under the guise of, or the disguise of, the Illuminati. Jesuits suppressed. Danger in the Vatican, the next part of this chapter is called. We come now to the reasons for the famous suppression, the expulsion from most of Europe of the order called the Society of Jesus in 1773. Now let's see what the author has to say here, as I already gave you some kind of explanation earlier. Louis XV, the King of France, was then on the throne. The Jesuits had earlier been dealt a serious blow by Blaise Pascal, a French Huguenot and Calvinist. Pascal had written a series of best-selling and controversial pamphlets called Lettres Provinciales, means provincial letters, between 1656 and 57, cited which were devastating in their exposure of the Jesuits. Try as they might, their attempts to defend themselves against the Frenchman's letters or to have his publications banned were entirely unsuccessful. Pascal not only made the Jesuits odious, he made them look ridiculous. Quote, "These Jesuit casuists," wrote Pascal, "give us elbow room at all events." Unquote. Pascal's exposé had brought the intrigues of the Jesuits to the fore once again. A commission was appointed by the French authorities to examine the constitutions and privileges of the Jesuits. The commission reported that the Society of Jesus was dangerous to the state, hostile to the Gallican liberties, and unlawful. The writings of their most revered professors, Saint Bellarmine and Professor Busenbaum, were ordered to be burned. The French authorities then moved to suppress the Jesuits completely. The decree for the suppression of the society was passed by Parliament in 1762, but its execution was delayed by orders of the French king. "Sint ut sunt aut non sint." Let them be as they are, else or else not be, replied Jesuit General Lorenzo Ricci, responding to King Louis XV's demand for their reform. The French king had no choice but to drive them out of his realm. In 1763, all the Jesuit colleges were closed. The members of the society were required to renounce their vows under threat of banishment, but as hardly any members of the society complied with this condition, the decree of banishment was promulgated in 1764. Already a similar fate had befallen them in Portugal in 1759 and was soon followed in Spain in 1767. The Spanish decree was very broad. It suppressed them in the Philippines, Argentina, New Granada, which today is Colombia, Peru, Chile, Ecuador, Guatemala, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Mexico, New Mexico, and even Arizona. Austria followed suit in 1773. Quote, blow after blow fell upon them with crushing force, and at length they were banished with merciless severity and transported to the coasts of the Roman states. Unquote. That the Society of Jesus has been expelled from so many different countries at so many different periods suggests that the Society conceals something very disturbing, if not iniquitous, within it. A whole order was not expelled from France, Spain, Portugal, England, etc., merely because the Society of Jesus contained a few quote-unquote bad apples. No, a gross evil must reside within that society called the Jesuits. Before the French suppression, Antichrist Pope Clement XIV first made every effort to get the Jesuits to agree to a reform of their constitutions and regulations, but without avail. In the end, Clement XIV, against his wishes and under much pressure from France, Spain, and Portugal, was forced to abolish the order entirely. This he did with a most comprehensive papal decree, or brief, of July 21st, 1773, which he signed on July 23rd, the aforementioned bull Dominus ac Redemptor Noster, decreeing this suppression of the society, in which he summed up in masterly fashion the causes and the motives that had guided him in taking the fatal decision. The bull recited, with good justification, a long and heinous catalogue of charges against the Jesuits. Amongst other things, it charged them with instigating various insurrections and rebellions, plottings, undermining corporations of every sort in Europe, in Asia, and in America, and labeled them the, quote, bane of all nations, unquote. It further accused them of, quote, tumults, disturbances, violence, and of disturbing the peace of the church and the nations. The Pope, in enumerating their faults, said that these faults were so great as to outweigh their services, unquote. In consequence...
Wow, Jörg, this is intense.
Yeah.
This last page you just read is really intense.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But we have to understand. we have to understand that all this was planned on beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
As we say in politics, never something happens that is not planned before.
That's right. That's right.
We have to understand that there is a deeper, a deeper underlying reason for the Jesuits to be banished at that moment. It is to weigh the world in security of, quote unquote, now all the bad is gone, now we can go along and make up. You know?
Right.
And this is why the Americans didn't even wake up to the fact that their country was founded by Illuminati.
No.
By Jesuits in that way. Huh? I mean, isn't it Alberto Rivera who says in this little outro that you made on All Roads Lead to Rome, I think it was, that he said that George Washington was the first Jesuit-controlled president of the United States of America?
Yeah.
What more proof do you need? Okay, the Jesuits at that moment were banished, but they were under the guise of the Illuminati. Yeah. It was just the same. It is just another mask they put on. What was the chapter before called? Behind 1,000 masks.
Yes.
And the Illuminati was nothing else but that mask.
Mm-hmm.
They have a satanic agenda to fulfill. And the end justifies the means.
It does.
They can kill as many people from the Roman Catholic Church, as many people even of their own order, as long as in the end their order will succeed. And you know, all this, what is written here, is wonderful history about 250 years ago, but look at the world we are living in today. How many Jesuit schools, Jesuit colleges, Jesuit universities you have over there in the United States of America?
Oh, man.
How many Catholic and Jesuit-controlled colleges, universities, and schools do we have over here in Europe?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't all the people in politics controlled by the Pope of Rome through the Jesuit order? Aren't all the big global companies of the world put with CEOs on them who are all members of the Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Knights of St. Gregory, and all other kinds of papal orders, or high Freemasons? And who is the boss of the Freemasons? So, with this quote-unquote deception of their quote-unquote abolishment, they only achieved that a little bit more than 200 years later, which is today, they have the whole world in the pocket.
Oh, yeah.
And God told us in the beginning, because God told us in the book of Revelation, Jesus Christ
Mm-hmm.
tells us in the book of Revelation that the kings of the earth have fornicated with the whore of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
Means nothing else but that the whore of Babylon, the beast, the Vatican beast, which is wrote by the Roman Catholic Church, which is written by the Roman Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
has control over the political powers of this world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we see all over in the world. And how did they achieve that? By, quote unquote, being abolished. Because the whole world at that moment was sure the danger is gone. Okay, the people had at that time the reformational understanding, the Protestant understanding, the Pope was the Antichrist. I mean, the people in America had. 98% of the American population in 1776 was Protestant. Only less than 2%, 1.8% was Catholic, 0.2% was Jewish. The people have the understanding because of the Bible that was given to them just a little bit more than 150 years before, that the papacy is the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jesuits working for the Antichrist, of course they were feared. So the John Doe on the street, in German we say Otto Normalverbraucher. In English you say John Doe.
Mm-hmm.
The common man on the street knew the Pope has no power anymore because of he was taken away by this general from Napoleon in 1798, for example. And the Jesuits don't have power anymore because they are forbidden and they don't exist anymore. So the danger is gone. But the Bible says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8, that God will consume the Antichrist with the power of his breath. Something like that.
The spirit of his mouth, yeah, or something
Spirit
like
of his
that.
mouth.
Something
Yeah.
like that, yeah. About the same
And
thing.
not earlier is he taken out of the way. Not earlier is he giving up his power. Huh?
Yeah.
2 Thessalonians 2 verse 8, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Has Jesus Christ come yet? No.
I don't
So when
think
Jesus
so.
Christ did not come. Yeah, because pinch yourself. Are you
Yeah,
still in this
that's
flesh and
right.
body? Then
Yeah.
Jesus Christ has not come yet.
No.
So when Jesus Christ has not come yet, that means the Antichrist is still here.
Oh, yeah.
But they fooled the people at that time. And what did they do right after that? Look, the Jesuits were re-established in 1814, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happened after 1814? In 1830 in Oxford, the Oxford movement.
That's right.
And the Emancipation
Very good
Act.
point. Very
The
good point.
putting equal of the Roman Catholic Church again with the Anglican Church and giving back the power to the Roman Catholic Church. So the people were not aware of that the Roman Catholic Church now got all her power back. And from that moment on, they forged all the Bibles. I mean, they discovered in 1844. Yeah, SDA people, interesting. Think about that date for a while. In 1844, Tischendorf, so-called, claimed to have found the Codex Sinaiticus, in the trash can of the cloister in Palestine somewhere there, right? That was 1844. And the Codex Sinaiticus is next to the Codex Vaticanus, which was all of a sudden, quote unquote, mysteriously discovered in the Vatican archives in 1475. And those two papers are the basis, or scrolls are the basis of all modern corrupted Bibles. The English Standard Version, the Revised Version of the Bible, the New King James, the NIV, the RSV, the ASV, all these versions are based on the Nestle Aland text, are based on the Codex Sinaiticus, and are based on the Codex Vaticanus. And in 1844, that paper came up. Do you think that is quote-unquote coincidence at that time? When just a few years before you had through the Emancipation Act, you had the reinstallment of the power of the Catholic Church in England, and starting with the charismatic movement some 50 years later, and then again some 50 years later starting with the ecumenical movement, which is now 50 years ago.
Yeah.
To bring back everyone under the wings of Rome? No, there are no accidents. There are no incidents that are not planned. The Jesuits planned all this stuff, and by officially being abolished, Brett,
that's right,
and the Roman Catholic Church, quote unquote, losing her power, the people were put into the feeling of security, of safety. Yeah. Right. They are safe from the persecution of the devil now.
When they say peace and safety, sudden destruction shall come upon them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, we didn't read too much today in this part of the book, but I think the explanation is maybe also some kind of interest.
I think it's a good thing to keep focused on this time period a bit, because it really, this is part of the roadblock we got here in America. You can't really learn history past this or before this period or during this period, actually, because of the incredible amount of lies and deception, false teaching of history, or just teaching history from a point of view. It all is an ideological thing. And when the people see that, then maybe they can start thinking, well, what did I learn? Why did I get taught this version of history? Why didn't I learn it, the right way? Well, you got to learn it yourself. That's the point. You got to study it yourself.
Yeah, I know.
It's the only way to really learn it. Because all of us, in a way, are creating our own ideology, I guess.
That in the beginning of this broadcast, I spoke about that circle in which the Pope can move, and if he crosses it, he is a dead man.
Yeah.
We can read that on page 256 that we will come to in one of our next readings, where it says that Count Campello, who was a great friend of the late Pius IX, drew a circle and said, within that circle, he, the Pope, is free. If he crosses it, he is a dead man. And a little further on the page that we stopped now on 249, the author says, the Jesuits were unceremoniously suppressed. That's what we were speaking about all this broadcast. And then he continues to say, or so it seemed. So I have to postpone that information to the next reading.
Of Order Codeword out Barbelon. Of chaos. We just get further and further down this road, Jörg. And it just gets more and more interesting.
Leave the people wanting for more, Brett.
That's right. All right. Then I guess that wraps it up, Jörg.
Yeah, for today, that wraps it up. Absolutely. I enjoyed myself, and I hope that you enjoyed it too, and that you will avail yourself to all these book readings. And please, if any book outside of the Bible interests you or should gain your interest outside the Bible, read Romanism and the Reformation from Henry Gretton Guinness. Next to the Bible, the most important Protestant work every quote-unquote Christian should have read. And if you think it to try to read for yourself, turn to my YouTube channel, where I don't have the whole part uploaded on my main channel, but I have a third channel called Jörg Glissmann, where all 34 parts of the book reading from Tom Friess are available as video. And you can pick up the book for free on the internet as a PDF, and you can read along when Tom reads and explains that book. Next to the Bible, there is no more important book to ever read and understand than Romanism and the Reformation from the Standpoint of Prophecy by Henry Gretton Guinness, published in 1888. And with that, I'm going to leave the closing remarks to you, Brett. Thanks very much for coming with me to the table. I enjoyed the reading very much, and I'm looking very much forward to complete, or not to complete, but to continue in the chapter that we are reading right now, Order Out of Chaos, the Jesuits, their rise, their fall, and then their audacious return. Thanks very much for watching, listening, commenting. May God bless you. Until next time, Jocular66 from Hour of the Truth says God bless you. Signing off, and bye-bye.
Thank you again, Jörg, for your gracious reading of this book and your commentary on that wonderful work that Tom Friess has done with Romanism and the Reformation, that I agree 100% that this is one of the most monumental books one can read. And listen to Tom Friess's reading of it, actually, too, because Tom has some insights that very few people have. And with that, I give you my blessings and prayers that you turn to your Bible and find Jesus today, and throw off the concerns of the flesh and learn what the Spirit is through the Word of God. Draw close to our Lord and Savior, and He is the only bringer of true meaning in this life anyway. All the rest is just trouble. So, catch you next time. Bye for now.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people, literally. It was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. And I believe that we've come horribly off track in the years since the fall of the Soviet Union. And we're starting now in the 21st century, which I believe strongly is a crisis both of our church, a crisis of our faith, a crisis of the West, and a crisis of capitalism.
His son Jesus is here in our midst. His bride, the church, is honored to host an event affirming the dignity of the human person and the sacredness of all human life.
I think Russia is no longer a communist state, first of all. That's very important to realize. It hasn't yet defined itself, however, effectively as a democracy. It is still uncertain.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 25 years.
You didn't mention the president by name, but it was hard not to conclude that that's who you were referring to. Is that fair?
I was certainly referring to the threats that we are now facing with this stated goals of this administration, which would upset the last 70 years of a new world order which was established after World War II. 70 years based on human rights, respect for the law, free trade, all of the things, aspects of this world order that took place after one of the most horrific, terrible wars in history, and I'm for maintaining it.
We are grateful to be citizens of one nation under God, who acclaim this evening that in God we trust. Bless our two candidates, our benefactors, and those whom the L. Smith Foundation has been honored to serve for 7 decades. Guide us safely home, both this evening and for all eternity, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
It's no coincidence